Welcome to Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Is it worthwhile to self-manage your rental property? Learn how small upfront property improvements can make a big difference in your long-term rent income and your occupancy. It can help you fill a Class C property with a Class B tenant. We're getting hands-on today on Get Rich Education. Finally, with Total Control Financial, get checkbook control of your existing 401k and IRA funds to invest in real estate. Yes, you can move your retirement money into your own checking account, but you must avoid the little-known tax that you'll get hammered with in a self-directed IRA. Instead, start your QRP. Learn more and get your free copy of the QRP book by text messaging QRP in all capital letters to 72,000. The company that's provided our listeners with more loans than anyone is Ridge Lending Group, NMLS 42056. You can finance more than 10 single families up to fourplexes. Serving most U.S. states, their knowledge and experience leads to your financial freedom. They're number one in the investment space. Pre-qualify and then chat with President Chaley Ridge personally. Start on your next investment property loan right now at ridgelendinggroup.com.
You're listening to the show that has created more financial freedom than nearly any show in the world. This is Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE, from Salisbury, England to Salisbury, Maryland, and across 188 nations worldwide. I'm Keith Weinhold. This is Get Rich Education. Is it worth it to get hands-on and self-manage your income properties? Well, I think you know that that's not really my personal style. I want to use a professional manager and live my life. But you know, that doesn't mean that my take or my lifestyle preferences need to be yours. And today's guest does get hands-on, and he's doing a number of innovative, forward-thinking things to his properties to make a big difference in his profitability. And you're going to be more profitable by listening to this today. Some small upfront tweaks that are really paying off long-term are what we're talking about here. Because see, his properties aren't in the top areas, but yet he's able to attract really good tenants that are willing to pay substantially above market rent and pay far more than anyone else on that block for the same type of property. And at the same time, he's reducing his cost by sort of tenant-proofing his properties. Much of it begins with how he identifies poorly managed properties. And by the way, he's doing it in America's northernmost city, Anchorage, Alaska. It's a market that has lower price points than a lot of coastal markets, and it is a more expensive market than most cash flow markets. A 10-unit building that was built in the 1970s with just no frills, 2-bed, 1-bath units that are 850 square feet each can cost somewhere between $750,000 and $900,000. I would definitely know because I do own some of those. Look, you need to understand something. Here in the year 2020, when most U.S. housing markets have had a good 8 or so years of both price appreciation and rent growth, it is easier for a bad property manager to stay in business. That's because upward prices, that can cover up a lot of mistakes. These higher prices can make an investor get sloppy, and you might not really be keeping an eye on your expenses. Alternatively, it's tougher for a bad manager to do well in a down market because when you have a thinner profit margin between your rent income and your expenses, well, then your inefficiencies stick out more easily. A few episodes ago, I mentioned some of the opportunities to meet me in person internationally, like in Singapore, Mumbai, and Dubai. For those opportunities in the United States, like where I'll be speaking October 8th to 10th at the Spartan Real Estate Investing Summit in Birmingham, Alabama, learn more and get the details at getricheducation.com/events. That's getricheducation.com/events. Whether you self-manage or not, let's identify management profit opportunities that you might be missing today. Today's guest has 3 engineering degrees. Previously, he had spent 16 years in fire protection contracting, and now he's been a full-time real estate investor since 2008. He started the REX, R-E-X, that's the real estate exchange, in 2008 as well. The REX is Alaska's largest real estate investors education network. I've been to a number of REX meetings myself. He also built one of the state's largest real estate sales teams, averaging $60 million a year in real estate sales, but he sold that team in early 2019, and now more recently, he's become the broker and president of a company called Real Estate Brokers of Alaska. And in fact, that's the family of companies that manages some apartment buildings that I own myself in Anchorage. This guest also has a contracting company. In fact, he owns a total of 7 companies, all in the real estate industry. And in his personal portfolio, he owns 45 units. That's soon to be 51 because he has a 6-plex under contract. He's also involved in Airbnbs, and he invests in opportunity zone funds. He recently launched a service called Virtual Property Pro. They offer real estate owner assistance services. The interesting thing with all these things is that he self-manages his properties. So we're going to talk about that. It's been a few years here. Welcome back to Get Rich Education, Kevin Cross.
Keith, it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate it.
I could go on and on with more about Kevin, things I just know about him personally. He plays the piano. He sold me the primary residence that my family lives in today, in fact. So he's everywhere and he seemingly does it all. And Kevin, I wouldn't be surprised if when we're done here, you somehow show up at my door with some hot lasagna squares that you just baked for lunch for me or something. You're doing
yes,
it all.
from my organic garden that I tilled the soil with my own mittens.
I wouldn't be surprised. He's also the former president of the Anchorage Association of Realtors. He's been appointed by the mayor of Anchorage, Alaska to serve on the planning board. So I could go on and on. It's really remarkable. But what's intriguing to me is despite the fact that you are a significant person in this industry, is that you self-manage all 45 of your properties. I think every one of those 45 are local. So first of all, just tell us about that portfolio.
I appreciate that, Keith. So like I said, I have 45 units in contract to buy another 6-plex. I have every intention of managing them myself. It was a gradual process. You know, you pick up properties, you sell them. I've used professional managers in the past with success and with some frustrations. And over the course of the years that I've been investing in real estate, over 20, 25 now, started when I was younger, I've just developed some really good systems that allow me to keep control of the property, keep more of the profits in my pocket, and just have a commanding presence on how my properties are managed, which to me is the most important thing, is that I find that tenant quality dramatically increases when the owner has a presence in how they're managed, and that if there's an emergency, the tenant knows they're dealing with the owner and not an uninterested third party, which could happen if you don't get the right manager.
Yeah, sometimes I could just be a smart reply in an email or say that I want to be involved in placing this tenant, even if I'm remote. And I had to fire the first ever property manager. So I kissed a frog until I found the right one, the second one. But when it comes to finding deals on properties in the first place, I think you're really opportunistic. And I know for you, a lot of that starts with finding those property managers that are doing a poor job and getting into opportunities that way. Tell us about that.
So you're absolutely right. You know, being in the real estate industry and dealing with a lot of clients who own investment properties in any market, I don't care what state, in any market, there's good and bad in every industry. That can be a plumber, an electrician, a heart surgeon, and property management is not exclusive to that at all. And there are a group of property managers, or I would say a small section of property managers that for whatever reason continue to stay in business, and people, generally they're out-of-state owners who don't know. They find somebody who sounds good, and because they're not attentive to their real estate, those property managers drive those properties into the ground. So of my 10 properties that I own, 9 of them were actually picked up because they were distressed properties, or they were, let's just say, great properties at one point. And then they diminished rapidly over a period of 2 or 3 years because these property managers ran them into the ground. And then I come in and I talk to the seller, and the seller at this point may be losing $2,500 or $3,000, $4,000 a month on the building.
Yeah.
And the repairs have been neglected. And my conversation I have with them is, do you want money or do you want out? Oftentimes they just want out, because if they try to make money, then they're going to have to put money into it. Maybe they have a 50% vacancy rate, which means most of your commercial loans you can't get standard financing unless they fill their vacancies, but they don't have 40, 50 grand to put into the distressed units. So in my case, I come in like a savior because I can fire the property manager, kick everybody out, take over, and turn the property around in pretty short order. Generally takes me anywhere from 90 to 120 days, just depends on the condition of the units, and dramatically improve that property. And for the seller, it's a win because maybe they're not making the windfall they thought, but if you're losing thousands of dollars a month and it's jeopardizing your marriage, I'm a savior.
How do you identify these properties in the first place? Is that remotely by looking at taxpayer rolls, or is that doing drive-arounds and seeing things like leaning fences or mattresses stacked up next to a dumpster? How do you find them?
One thing is I'll just call them because I can drive the neighborhood and see which properties are distressed. But you're exactly right, Keith. Listen, furniture on the side of the building, mattresses in the dumpster, broken down vehicles, poor paint, bad roofs, indications of just bad, that they haven't put money into it. Generally speaking, if a property is profitable, you can just tell looking at it. And the second thing is I'll just go on Craigslist or on Zillow or whatever it is and find units that have been rented. And I look to say, gosh, someone's been trying to fill this vacancy for 2.5, 3 months. Something's got to be wrong.
Yeah.
And I'll just call the owner. Now, sometimes I get hold of the property manager and I'll just say, and I'm interested in how long it's been for rent. What is this situation? I can get a feel for it. And then I'll go around the property manager and just get hold of the tax records, or I'll go into the state website, find who owns the corporation and find the articles of organization that are on file with the state. And I'll go directly to the seller and go, how is that property performing? Are you happy with it? And what's great is a real estate professional, if you're an investor, there's only two answers to how is that property performing. It's either performing well or it's not performing well, in which case they either want to buy another one if it's doing well, or they want to sell it if they're not doing well. It's a real easy conversion for those individuals that are in sales or those individuals looking to acquire. Just start networking and talking to other owners.
Yeah, so what you're doing is you're finding an owner that all call disinterested. And effectively what you're doing is you're going out there and solving a problem and taking a loser off someone's hands. Well, that's the property. And I know both you and I, in and around the city that we live in the small multifamily space, you and I both own these sort of smaller multifamily properties. Class C is typically that profitable place. We're not at the very bottom where we're in the slums. We're still at places that have the potential of operating in a clean, safe, affordable, and functional manner. But you've done a really great job of buying Class C properties, but yet getting a higher level tenant, like a Class B tenant inside that Class C property. So tell us about how you do that once you've taken over a building.
Well, the first thing that's important is that when I'm negotiating, I'm taking over problems that have condition issues. They are condition issues that I can control. You need to be very concerned, to be very hesitant about buying something that you're going to improve, but some of those things that need to be improved are outside your control. You can find a property in a Class C area, but it's very important that the properties on either side of you have good owners. If I were in any neighborhood, it doesn't matter how bad, you will find property owners who have pride in what they own. It's not to say, your chances decrease, just depends on the area. But even if I'm in the worst area of town, I can find a street where there's 5 or 6 properties for whatever reason, the owners just take care of them. Well, that's the street I want to be on. And I do interesting things. So on some of my properties, let me give you an example. If I have a vacancy in my building and I got to fill it, I go out and clean up the front of not just my property, but every property leading to mine off the main road. Now that seems ridiculous. Like, Kevin, that's a lot of work. No, it's dirt cheap. I can find some teenage kids, get them some latex gloves, a rake, and have them scrape 300 yards of road leading to my property, cleaning up around the neighbors' dumpsters and make it look nice.
Interesting.
I try to really make it look nice. However, there's only so much I can do. I can pick up trash. I can clean stuff up. I can close the lids on the dumpsters. If I see an abandoned vehicle, I can call the muni and have them haul it off as a part of their abandoned vehicle program. There's things I can do. But the thing I can't do is if the building next door has boarded up windows and it has just the dregs of society for tenants that are sitting outside at all times of the day, intimidating people, then I don't want to be next door to that building. You got to understand that the things that you negotiate on as condition are those things that you can control. Then I can clean up my property, make it look nice. My common areas are immaculate because I have a philosophy that if a tenant or somebody walks past garbage to get in your building and they're okay with that, that's not the person you want in your building.
Right. If they would accept that condition, what kind of lifestyle would they live inside the unit?
You want to change your life, change your standards.
Yeah.
Change your life, change your standards. And that applies for your tenants. One thing I really love about you is you understand that 90% of your success in real estate is tenants. Listen, you make a great building and you put poor tenants in it, you have a poor building. You take a marginal to poor building and you put fantastic tenants in it and you got gold. The tenants are the life of the building. So here's what happens. I've discovered just what it takes, at least for me, what is successful for me, on how I can resolve 90% of my headaches. And that is make a property that attracts great tenants and then have high standards. And as an owner, I'm able to have that conversation with them that says, hey, listen, I'm giving you an opportunity as you can tell. I take care of my building. I expect you to do the same. Are we in agreement? And I wait for them to say yes. Sometimes I talk to them like I'm the mean dad maybe they never had. And I say, well, good, because if there's any issues, I'm going to tell you I can love you, but my standards and your standards don't meet, and you're going to have to go.
Set that expectation up front.
I set it right up front. And guess what? Individuals who want a better life and who want standards and want to live in that, love that, by the way. The individual who says, oh, I don't want you in my business. I don't want you in my building anyway. So I set very high standards. I remove coin-op laundries. I make the laundry room beautiful, just like it's in your house. I remove coin-op laundries in my apartment buildings, and I put just really nice washers and dryers they can use.
That's really interesting. Okay, so foregoing the revenue on the laundry income.
Yeah, so because if you're a Class C area, I don't know if this has ever happened to you. In Class C areas, sometimes you have theft. Someone doesn't close the door all the way, and a vagrant wanders in and steals the quarters or tries to break into the machine.
Oh, yeah, and I have a Class C multifamily building where I have had homeless people sleeping inside it because it was warm at night. Yeah.
Yep. So one thing is I put motion detectors in there with bright LED lights because they don't like the lights. They like the darkness, but if it brightens up every time they move, they don't like that. I put automatic locking keyless entry doors on everything, so nobody needs keys. The doors just automatically shut. I put Arlo security systems in them that tell me from my phone. I can tell you when you were in and what's going on, so I can resolve these issues right away or call the police if I see vagrants in there. And then I don't put coin-op laundries in there because they're not attracted to it because there's no money to steal. My common areas are spotless. They look like somebody's house. I just hired a guy to go back and I hired him $10 an hour to go in and put like on the handrails inside, put LED Christmas lights and stuff on it to make it really attractive because some of my tenants have kids and the kids should have a nice Christmas experience when they come into my properties. It doesn't take much if you just, in order to increase your standards, in order to keep it to where you just have minimal issues. Because really good tenants fix most of the items themselves or they bring it to your attention right away. And that's the individuals that you want. That's what allows you to manage all your buildings without a property manager or with minimal property management influence. Because you've got great tenants that don't abuse things. Or if there's a problem, they can resolve them. You want the kind of tenant that goes out and when they see that the dumpster is too full, is the kind of person that in their life they go back and move the trash around and put the bags back in the dumpster, stuff it down and clean up around it themselves without waiting to say it's somebody else's job.
Right. Just all around responsible people.
And how do you do that? Well, because like energy attracts like energy. If you are a responsible owner and you set that expectation up front that, hey, listen, I take pride in my building. I expect you to do the same. And here's how I behave. Then they will straighten up. I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think that there's a lack of you call it a lack of leadership, but there's a lack of people holding people accountable. But they're actually good people are attracted to that. And I don't care what neighborhood it is. There's good people in Class C areas that just need a break. They've had tough times. Maybe they fell on hard times. They had medical expenses and the credit's just poor because of medical issues. And so I don't hold any of that against them. If I meet you and I look and I check your references and you're a solid person, I look past credit. I look past those things unless it's willful default on debts. That's different than life just threw me a curveball.
Right. Not every bad credit score is a bad credit score. There might be a reason behind that that's better than another reason.
That's right. But then I go into the property and it doesn't take much to make it nice. And what I mean by that is just make sure your common areas are clean. Paint the walls. One of the things I do so I don't have to hire a property manager, for instance, is I have a house cleaner who every week goes through and just cleans the common areas, empties the trash in the laundry rooms. Now get this. She only takes about an hour, hour and a half. So for $25 an hour, I'm able to have someone go check the property, walk it, make sure the common areas are nice, smell good, there's no issues, and report back to me and my maintenance crew on, hey, here's the problem. Hey,
that's fantastic.
I noticed an issue. Because how often and nothing against property managers, but we can all agree that they're not going into your property once a week.
They're not incentivized to.
Well, no, not unless there's a problem. They don't go out unless there's an issue, which is someone didn't pay rent or the police showed up or, hey, I've just got notice there's a broken window. But if I have a house cleaner who's charging me just dirt cheap to go in and clean the common areas and make it look nice, and they see trash, they go, Mr. Cross, I just got to let you know, it looks like we have another vehicle out here and there's only 2 parking spots per person and there's a third one. Well, then I can go, who is it? What's going on? Fantastic. And then I actually, over the years, built up a team. So I have virtual assistants in the Philippines. And so the house cleaner just notifies my employees in the Philippines and they say, text to the tenant, just says, hey, I see you have 3 vehicles. What's the story on it? Oh, you know what? It's my brother. He's just staying temporarily. And so, it's like, okay, well, he can't stay more than 72 hours. Otherwise, that's a change in tenancy under state law. This is your notice that he's not to stay there over 72 hours and you have 24 hours to get the vehicle out of there.
Yeah, that's a great system that you have there. So when you have these nicer looking areas, now you have elevated standards, now you have better tenants, and a rising tide lifts all boats. And then when you have a tenant that's perpetrating, because the standard is higher, they're more likely to report and even self-police that profligate behavior that doesn't fit in the building, whether that's smoking in a unit when they're not supposed to, or partying or being loud or something like that. And you're also going to retain tenants longer when you have these elevated standards, just with some of these tweaks to the common areas that you're talking about.
Well, and that's what you want. You want tenants. Tenants are going to stay there longer, take better care of the building. And, in lieu of that, I'm less likely to also increase your rent. Why? Because what is the expense to me? You're saving me money because you behave well. And that's where you got to be careful. You got to look at that. And that happens sometimes when you're purchasing a building. If you're an investor and you found a building out there and the rents seem really high, you need to check those lease agreements and you need to check when they were dated and when that change in tenancy occurred. Because it is possible that the seller, in order to try to get more money from it, just stuck anybody he could inside that property at a really high rental rate. But these are individuals you would not want at your building. I'm looking at this. Now, that's if I'm paying market value. Like I said, I'm going into these properties that have profound vacancies. I've dealt with property that had multiple drug dealers in it. So it helps being 6 foot, 230 pounds, okay? Because I'll knock on the door, and I've had that conversation. If you want what other people don't have, you have to be willing to do what other people won't do. And sometimes I have to go knock on the doors and say, excuse me, I'm Kevin Cross. I'm the new owner. And I know that you've got some illegal activity going on here. And I just want to let you know, I'm not going to make your business easy at all. It's going to be very difficult. I'm going to be calling the police often to scout the property. I'm going to install video cameras, and your business is going to be very difficult. I would encourage you to leave willingly as soon as possible, because inevitably you and I are going to have a conflict and you're probably going to end up in jail.
These are situations that make most people feel uncomfortable. I think to Kevin, situations like this smell like opportunity.
They are the most beautiful opportunity. Can I tell you the best part of this? It sounds scary to try to handle this, but they don't want any issues. The people are causing troubles that are thieves or not paying. But once I get them out, in any building, I've discovered there's always some good people, 1 or 2 people that are just fantastic human beings that, for the life of them are living there for whatever. I bought these 2 8-plexes, Keith.
Yeah.
And I had 3 tenants in these 8-plexes. One had been there 27 years, one had been there 25 years, and another one had been there 24 years. 3 tenants had been there. They knew each other. They were friends. They pay on time and they take care. Their units are spotless. And this building they lived in, the land, it was an out-of-state owner, and he just drug it into the ground. The property manager just destroyed it. And listen, they've been living there so long, they didn't want to leave.
Yeah, they've almost exceeded the depreciation schedule on the building.
2 of the units had never been touched. They had zip-tied and duct-taped the place together themselves when there was issues. They were trying to fix it themselves. So I come in and I clean house. And I start improving these units. And guess who's getting a bump kick for Christmas? These people now love me and they can't wait. And they're highly appreciative and they're wonderful people. And I'm excited because now I'm going to be able to go in and invest some of the money, because I'm taking units that we're renting for $800 to $850 per unit. And I'm now getting $1,300 per unit out of them now that I've changed the management, turned it around, and updated some of the units. That's a significant increase in cash flow, by the way.
Now, that's huge. So we're talking about properties that are right next to yours where you might be getting $850 or $900 and yours that much higher?
I'm tremendously higher. Why? Because I do what I call, they're not furnished. I do lightly furnished, which means that Everything's nice. I got curtains, not instead of the blinds. I got curtains on the windows. I install flat screen TVs. I give them Wi-Fi. And there's paintings on the wall, and there's decorations, and there's towels in the bath. You literally just need to bring your bed and your couch and a coffee table, and you're good. The reason I do this is because if I just did a blanket unit with nothing on the walls, guess what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to go in there and hang their own crap. They're going to just probably going to punch. They're going to put holes. They're going to do stuff. My leases say you don't put anything on the walls. You don't. My units come with paintings. They come with mirrors, everything. And by the way, I can go to Goodwill and get this stuff dirt cheap. So I go to Goodwill and I find artwork and stuff, and I stockpile really inexpensive stuff from garage sales. And then I just decorate my units and make them look nice. I want them spending money on rent, not on decorations.
That's a great way to think about it. Yeah, they're effectively paying more in rent by a substantial factor if you just do a little bit more in the beginning. We're talking with Kevin Cross about how to optimize rent income and optimize occupancy. You're listening to Get Rich Education. We'll be back with more. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold.
71% of Americans aren't saving enough for retirement. It's going to get worse as people live longer, and you need to start thinking differently. But you can't lose your time. Real estate is the investment vehicle that's made more ordinary people wealthy than anything else. Keith Weinhold of Get Rich Education is host of one of America's top investing shows, Disrupting Wall Street. He's an international best-selling author, a writer for Rich Dad Advisors, and has been an active income property investor since 2002. He has created thousands in passive monthly income for countless followers, and now he has a free book, The 7 Principles for Creating Wealth in Your Life. Get your copy now at getricheducation.com/book. That's getricheducation.com/book. Because invest in what produces income for you now and later. Keith Weinhold is your guy. Sign up now at getricheducation.com/book.
Countless property investors get killed with maintenance costs, but that's far less likely when you buy brand new construction. Let me tell you about JWB Real Estate Capital in Jacksonville, Florida. They pioneered the build-to-rent model where you can invest in new construction, turnkey rental properties. That's why JWB was featured on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. To learn more and see inventory, go to newconstructionturnkey.com.
This is our Rich Dad, Poor Dad author, Robert Kiyosaki. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. We're talking with Kevin Cross about how to optimize your rent income, optimize occupancy, and a lot of those little tricks that can really make you more profitable as a real estate investor. Kevin, among all your varied interests, we haven't even talked about them all yet. I know that you have a shop in your home and you're really into woodworking as a hobby, and you found a way to incorporate this woodworking hobby into making your rentals more profitable. Tell us about how you do that.
Yes, well, I can't sit behind a monitor for very long. I need what I call DeWalt therapy. And DeWalt therapy is just I need to go work with my hands, okay? Yeah. In fact, in my business, this may sound, I only do real estate from 8 to about 2 in the afternoon. And between 1 and 2 in the afternoon, I stop, I go do my projects. And I need that. I need that action. I need to work with it. I couldn't just leave construction behind. So one of the things I do is that I told you that I partially furnished units, like I put stuff in them. Right. Sometimes I get a lot of joy out of going out, and sometimes I'll do a tile backsplash or something in a unit. I'll hire out contractors, or I'll hire my crew to do it if it's something I don't want to do. But I kind of cherry pick and make it fun. Like, I really enjoy it. I like working with tools. I build furniture and then I furnish the units. I've got the 6 Airbnbs. And so we've got 2 more Airbnbs that'll be up in about, 30 days. We're finishing building those out, making them really nice. But I go build the furniture. Like, to me, that's enjoyable. I've got a 24-inch commercial planer, so I take rough wood and I plane it down, and I've got a joiner, and I've got I bought a cabinet shop as a real estate agent. I had a guy sell his house, and he had a bunch of cabinet making equipment. He was moving out of state, so I bought it from him at a discount, put it in my home, and now I make my own furniture. And I love the smell of sawdust and linseed oil. And I get to put that in my properties. Most people would have to hire it out, pay a lot of money, but for me, it's therapy.
So we're talking about things like maybe shelving or cabinets that you put in a laundry room or inside a unit, or?
You would be surprised. Yes, I do custom built-ins. And a couple times I've actually done custom cabinets. I've done concrete countertops. I've torn out load-bearing walls and replaced it with an I-beam and opened stuff up. What's nice about it is that coming from construction and getting into real estate investing, I could not leave the construction part behind. I think there's a reason Jesus was a carpenter. There's a lot of satisfaction that you get with working with your hands and looking at a job well done. All the other stresses that you have in life kind of fade away when you're, trying to make a precision cut and you're joining something up real nice and you step back and you sand it and stain it and it just looks beautiful. There's a lot of peace that I get from that, a lot of personal satisfaction, and I just incorporate that into my units. A lot of people spend a lot of money going to amazing places, which I know there's beautiful places all over the earth. But sometimes I can get a lot of satisfaction out of just a little project. So I look for opportunities to work on my properties, buy some tools and work with them. And there's a few things I don't like doing. My knees and my back won't allow me to do more than, say, 1,000 square feet of flooring. So I try to avoid a lot of flooring. Yeah. It's like, no thanks. But if it's within reason and it allows me to develop my skill set on something so that I can try it out on a rental unit where my quality can probably be a 7 or 8 out of 10, and then master that skill and go back and do it at my house at a much higher level. I love that. And to me, that's a big passion. I think it's important to find what you love to do in life and incorporate it into what you're doing in work. Okay.
Yeah. You've done such a good job with that.
And that's where you went through all those things that I do, but I love doing that stuff. I love being a voracious problem solver and looking for opportunities to approach things in a way other people didn't see. That's what I loved about construction. When we were in construction, you couldn't start building a hospital and give up halfway through and go, I guess it's just not going to work. It's really hard.
Right.
No, you just have to figure out a way to make it work. Like, no, we're not going to stop. And when we're done, a hospital will get built. How are we going to get through this? And so you apply that creative problem solving. That's why I think a lot of guys that do construction for a long time do great real estate, because they don't focus on the problem. Just like, what is the problem I need to solve?
Now, there are some things inside a unit that often work well in a primary residence, but don't work so well in a rental. I'm talking about things like oftentimes in a rental, you don't really want to have a garage door opener or something like a garbage disposal because it brings up a lot of maintenance problems. It's not really a deal breaker as far as the tenant wanting to come in or they're going to leave early because those things aren't there. So can you identify any areas when it comes to maintaining the inside of a unit or upgrading it that you just think are a total ripoff? Like if that's snow removal or floor installation or certain cove base installation, is there anything that's just a total ripoff that you really want to do yourself?
That's an excellent question. A lot of that depends on your skill set. I was a pipe fitter, special hazard. So I was good at soldering and stuff. So, if the door's open, here's one thing. I can do any plumbing repair. I don't always want to. For instance, if it's a leaky valve or it's a proportioner or I got to do a shower or do something, I can knock that out really quick. There are plumbing repairs that just are no longer worthy of my time. That would be a leaky sewer line in a crawl space. I'm not doing that anymore. Right. But there are certain things, as far as a ripoff, I will tell you, I agree wholeheartedly. On my 2-bedroom units, I do not put dishwashers in them. I don't see, because the rest of my building is so nice, I don't worry about it. I also don't put garbage disposals. I also don't do the 2 bay sinks. I went to one big. I go from the 36-inch stainless to a 30-inch 1 basin sink that just got one. Why? Less plumbing connections underneath. Makes for more counter space in the unit. You think 6 inches doesn't matter on the countertop? Matters a bunch. Some of these smaller kitchens, and then no garbage disposal. But that's just a maintenance. It also makes it look nice. It cleans it up. If they want a dual sink, just get a Rubbermaid container, put it in there. Also, it is $70 for a 30-inch, 9-inch deep stainless sink, but it's well over $100 for and $150 when you're getting into the dual bays if you want a decent steel gauge. So there's lots of little stuff. People pay for towel bars and stuff, but that stuff is ridiculously expensive. Go buy some 1/2-inch pipe, paint it with some silver paint, and make it look industrial. But my toilet paper holders, my towel rod holders are literally 1/2-inch pipe that's been painted and then screwed into like 1/2x4 or 1/2x3 solid pine and then painted. You can do pull-up bars on my rental units. Like you walk into the bathroom, it looks industrial, but that stuff is not coming out of the wall. Right? I don't put basic trim or cove base in my bathrooms. I use that plastic trim that goes around exterior windows, and that way it's plastic, and then I silicone the tar out of it. I do a beautiful job with silicone, by the way. I'm like Edward silicone hands. So you could pour just a bucket of water on there, and that water ain't going anywhere. It's little things. You own properties long enough, you realize that there's some small things that you can do that bulletproof them. Just using a good toilet flange and good bolts so they don't come loose, because then you get water in the subfloor, and it's just a nightmare. It's just a bunch of little stuff as this property's going together that then I could rent my units to a herd of buffalo. They would still, when they left, they would come out and they look really nice.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't do any damage. Well, there were some good tips there. I've got to say, I never thought about the one bay sink, reducing the piping underneath there. Well, you've dealt with property managers, and whether you want to have them or whether you don't, you do all this management yourself, and you're really good at setting up systems and yet outsourcing some of these processes so you still maintain a pretty good quality of life yourself. I know one way that you've done that is with Virtual Property Pro and really helping other people get in on these systems that you're using. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was an accidental business. I think that's probably the best inventions in life are things that someone went to solve their own problem and discovered that they could solve a lot of the problems of the world.
Right.
I wanted to keep control of my properties, but there's things I didn't want to deal with. I didn't want to deal with the call at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning that the dumpster was too full or the tenant was being too loud or, hey, going in and making all the notices on the 5th or the 7th that an individual hasn't paid. 90 to 95% of management is actually redundant little things that just nickel and dime your time.
And don't improve your quality of life.
They don't, but they got to get done. I mean, listen, if the toilet is slow to drain or the sink's slow to drain or there's a problem and they want to call, then it may not be an emergency, but I mean, you got to take care of it if you want to keep good tenants. I mean, that makes it really hard to want to go to, Estapa or go to Cancun or go to Italy. I developed systems using virtual assistants and a list of preferred contractors, just taught my VAs out of the overseas on how to just do all the day-to-day maintenance. Now, if there's an emergency, there's a fire, like the biggest thing I've run into in the last 6 months is I had a dryer fire. A belt went bad on a washer and dryer in one of the units, caught the lint. And so fortunately the tenant was there. He put it out with a fire extinguisher, but I was able to immediately call a contractor, get over there, move it, and everything was able. I did that, by the way, while I was in St. George, Utah, had all that resolved and had my team knock it out. But I developed these virtual assistants and this team of individuals. And then I had my clients going, I don't want to use a property manager, but I want to leave town. I was like, well, I'll tell you what, we'll help you out. Just give me the contact information, fill out this form so I know what your tenants' names are and who we got to notify, and then just, and I'll take care of it. And it kind of grew from there. So Virtual Property Pro, the business that we actually launched recently, isn't property management. It's owner assistance. We're specifically designed for those owners that want to have an active participation in their property, but do not want to get strangled with the 90% of the small stuff. You want a 24-hour 800 number your tenants can call if there's an emergency, and we document it. We can help you get competing bids if it is a big item, and then we don't do markup on any of the invoices. You create online portals for all your tenants to pay. We do monthly newsletters for your tenants, just reminding them of particular things regarding the property so that you kind of have a presence. If you have a vacancy, we advertise it. We send out applications and try to find the best tenants for you based on your criteria and then send you a list. Now, we do all these things for a small flat fee, like a fourplex we do for $149 a month.
Okay, that's pretty competitive. I mean, typically one is paying 8 to 10% for a professional property management fee, and then the leasing fee on top of that.
And not just a lease-up fee, but if you call a HVAC contractor and they send the guy out, they mark up on the invoices too. Some of them make a premium also on them. So we don't do any of that. We give you the option of taking care of the item, or would you like us to go make phone calls and have competitive bids done out? But essentially, I have 2 other clients and close friends who own, actually, they both own more units than I do. And over the course of years, we just built a phenomenal owner assistance. We're all hands-on owners, but we just wanted people to handle the month-to-month. So Virtual Property Pro, we just extended out now to the public and started saying, listen, why don't you take a look at what we do? We're no long-term contracts. You can use us month-to-month. Once you set up an account, you can turn us on and turn us off. So if you just want us to help you out while you're on vacation, once you set up an account, just pay for the time that you're gone. It's try to give you flexibility. Just understand that we're not going to personally come out to the property and escort the tenant through it. But we feel as if, and it's always been my belief, that that is a job that an owner or a strong owner's representative should be doing. The last thing you should be giving up as a property owner is choosing who goes in your building. Because remember what I said at the beginning, 90% of your success is tenant placement. If you want to develop a skill, if you are in multifamily rental properties and you want to develop a skill that'll set you apart, be phenomenal at identifying good people and attracting them to your building, period.
That's right, because I use professional management just completely for all my properties, but oftentimes I do let that manager in that market know, hey, when we do have a vacancy, I do want to be involved in the selection of that tenant.
And, if you take your hands off the wheel and they drive it into the ditch, that's your fault. And what I found is, listen, this isn't against property managers. Again, a good property manager is like a good heart surgeon. They will save your life when you need them. But also a heart surgeon can kill you. The problem is you don't realize it until you're on the gurney. And so you need to understand how your properties work. That's my opinion. You know what? If you find a phenomenal property manager that you can just hand it over without a thought, that individual is worth their weight in gold.
100%.
I'm of the mindset that I still have a responsibility to myself, that it is my job to look out for me and look out for these properties that are going to fund my retirement. And so I have a personal responsibility to stay engaged at not a significant degree, but on those items that matter most. And those items that matter most are tenant placement, first and foremost. And two is saving money on expenses. So I want to say over who the contractor is, and maybe I want to talk to them and say, hey, listen, I own a bunch of buildings, not just one or two. What kind of discount can you give me?
Yeah. We often talk about how management is more important than the property itself. Well, the tenant might be more important than the property itself as well.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, because think about it. Rentals is a service-based industry. Yes, you're providing housing, but this is like owning a restaurant, right? This is like having a good menu, and you need to attract people to your business. Well, that is on how you manage it. The real estate is just a tool we use in order to attract good tenants who give us money. The real estate is just a tool. So make sure that you know how to use your tools appropriately and properly, and you take good care of them. Because if you don't, then the individual who dictates your success is your tenant. They either willingly give you their money or willingly don't give you their money. Your job is to attract the best and provide a product that not only fills their needs, but doesn't drain you with expenses. So I don't think real estate's much different than any other service-based industry. You got to stay focused on your tenants, and they are your customers.
Well, Kevin, you certainly gave us a lot of good ideas for both finding a property and potentially a deal, and especially placing higher quality tenants. If someone wants to get started with Virtual Property Pro, who do you think a service like that is for?
Our target market is for those individuals that are either just buying their first investment property, their first fourplex, triplex, and they just need a little bit of assistance on organizing the books, keeping things together. They want someone they can talk to on the phone if they have issues. And probably someone who's got, maybe I would say 50 or less units. Once you start going up and you start really needing some services of a maintenance team and stuff like that, I would encourage you to look at like a property manager, a full service property manager. That's not the market we're looking for. We're just simply here to help those individuals that have the growing pains. The truth is, and Keith, you probably experienced that yourself, you understand that when you first get started, you don't typically get in the business right away needing a full-blown property manager. And not only that, they can be really expensive because they provide a big service. So
I self-managed to start with.
There you go. So you know what? When you first got and you bought your first investment properties, maybe you weren't sure about making sure, hey, listen, a move-in condition reports, a portal, an online portal where they can pay, 24-hour service call where if there's an issue, the tenant can call and they document everything and keep everything for your reporting, keeping profit and loss statements. And the difference is that we're actually, our Virtual Property Pros owned by a bunch of investors who own investment properties. So these are the same tools and the same systems we use on our own.
So if you're unsure of hiring a property manager and you're just getting going on your portfolio, or you really don't want to pay for a property manager, maybe Virtual Property Pro is that intermediate step. What's the best way for a person to get started and check that out?
Email me at kevin@alaskarex.com. That's alaskarex.com. Send that email out and just let us know that you want us to reach out to us. We'll have someone from our team reach out. That would probably be the best bet. Just email me at kevin@alaskarex.com and just say, hey, Virtual Property Pro, that you're interested. And we'll have someone from our team reach out, and then we'll just consult, find out a little bit about your portfolio and talk about some different options that we have.
That email is in the show notes for you. Kevin Cross, it's been valuable. Thanks so much for coming out of the show.
Thanks, Keith. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate what you do here. Thank you for helping individuals unselfishly build their real estate empires.
Oh, awesome material. Some great takeaways from Kevin today. To summarize, if you want to make your property attract great tenants, then have high tenant selection standards. Well, you can have those high screening standards if you understand that common areas help set the tone. Things like the cleanliness of the grounds, the hallways, and the laundry room area. It's interesting how he makes sure that vacant units are shown such that they're not fully furnished, but they already come with curtains, paintings on the wall, a television, and Wi-Fi. In fact, I found it interesting that tenants aren't even allowed to put anything on the wall. He might even see that some of those amenities are obtained from a secondhand store like Goodwill. And gosh, sometimes I just have to pause and really think how remarkable it is to cover real estate investing, about how it runs this gamut. Look, Jerome Powell's Fed lowers interest rates. That's important. Or how making sure trash isn't overflowing from a dumpster are all relevant topics here. One reason that I wanted to have Kevin on the show today is that the way that your real estate is managed is often reflective of your own personality and your investment philosophy. I outsource pretty much everything to a professional manager, but I do keep my eye on that monthly statement and more. Like I've said elsewhere, to me, real estate is not the end thing, but rather it is just the fuel to that end thing for me. I am just trying to live my best life. Next month, I'm going to be exploring tropical places like India and the tropical island nation of Sri Lanka. Lately, I've been reading about what it would take to climb North America's highest peak, Denali, and deciding if I even want to attempt that. I also put substantial effort into this show every week to help improve your life. I'm going places and engaging in things that I consider the spice of life, or grandiose things even. So when it comes to property management, my personality says, I don't want to be bothered. I have a big life to live here. I think Kevin's personality says, I really want to get involved. I can be more profitable this way. And that isn't to say that Kevin lives a small life, because he doesn't. It's just a different life. He owns a lot of influential businesses and serves on important boards. And really importantly, I know that he is a giver in his life as well. My take and outlook on life does not have to be yours. And that's a big part of why I wanted to have Kevin here. I don't think that either one of us are more right than the other. They're just different takes. One other way I admire Kevin is how he's found a way to incorporate his woodworking hobby and build furniture that he can put into his units. That's really cool. A lot of people that build furniture have to then find someone to sell it to or give it away to, but he doesn't have to. He gets more rent by fitting it into his units, and I think that's great, even though I don't have that particular inclination. With me, I think understanding the 5 simultaneous profit centers that I expect real estate to give me over the long term, then I'm all right with leaving some meat on the bone for a competent professional manager. And in return, they are then safeguarding this exceedingly fragile quality of life of mine here. But really, this is a substantial decision in your quality of life that you want for yourself and the lifestyle that you're designing for yourself. Now, like we touched on, professional management of your property does not have to be this all or nothing proposition. Some investors hybridize their management. For example, you might hire a property manager to do your lease up just to bring in that new tenant. And after that point, you might choose to do the ongoing monthly management of that tenant, or vice versa. The best markets to invest in are not usually the market that you live in, so many out-of-state investors use professional management. But I do know some out-of-state investors that manage remotely, and if you can attract a responsible tenant, the tenant often will take care of a lot of the maintenance items for you. Kevin is ambitious, talented, experienced, creative. He's connected. He's a good negotiator. In fact, it's not just my own home, but also 20 of my Anchorage area rental units were purchases I made with him, representing me as the buyer broker, because he is such a good negotiator. If you're interested in owner assistance service called Virtual Property Pro that takes care of 90% or more of your management issues, or you think you might want to try it the next time you're on vacation in order to test drive it, reach out to Kevin. Even if you've ever wanted to buy Anchorage property, you can connect with Kevin as well. I'm really grateful for your listenership this week and every week. Faithfully returning next week to help you build your wealth, I'm Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.